Well, hello and welcome to our special broadcast, Bad Medicine. Now, I'm Ashmit Kumar. The death of 69 children in Western African nation of Gambia has been linked to 4 cough syrups produced and manufactured by Haryana-based company Maiden Pharma. And while the state government has already stopped production at the company's Sonipat facility on the back of multiple violations, the fiasco has harmed India's reputation as the world's pharmacy. External Affairs Minister Jayaseelan has spoken to his Gambian counterpart, promising to investigate and take action if necessary. While experts on our channel have raised questions over the lapses in licensing procedures, the safety efficacy of cough syrups sold in India have also come under the radar. Several states have already swung into action and have begun assessing commercially available cough syrups for contamination. And well, to take this discussion forward, we are now joined by Dr. Viranchi Shah, National President at the Indian Drug Manufacturers Association, Jayaseelan, Vice President, Industry Division at the Indian Pharmaceutical Association, and also with me is Sanjit Singh Lamba, CEO, Biocuris Pharmaceuticals. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on the show. My colleague Ekta Batra is also with us. If I may come to you, Mr. Viranchi Shah, the first question I'd like to ask is the concerns that have been raised is that this could serve to be only merely the tip of the iceberg, that there are issues that go far beyond just Maiden Pharma, that quality control issues is not an isolated incident. Is this time for perhaps a bigger rethink by the industry? Does this call into question other players and other practices in the industry as well?
Thank you for having IDMA on this platform. I think we are trying to read too many things from what this recent incidents has happened. The information that we have as IDMA is both preliminary and partial. And I think we should wait for a very fair investigation both in Gambia and in India on this issue. The government has very recently set up a monitoring committee on this, headed by a very eminent scientist, pharmacologist, Dr. Y.K. Gupta. So I think rather than coming to judgments and conclusions, we at IDMA would like to wait for some sort of concrete information and concrete investigation on what went wrong, and then only we can derive some action plan on what could have went wrong and what we should do as an industry, as a nation, if at all something has went wrong so bad. How do we prevent the recurrence? So my take would be, let us wait until the truth is out.
Okay, but Dr. Shah, this is not the first time this has happened. The reason why it's probably got so much attention is because the WHO has put out a product recall. It's on an international scale that this entire incident has taken place and has probably put India's reputation on the line to a certain extent as well. We have seen incidents of DEG contamination in India in the past, and that's probably where the IDMA should have stepped in. The last incident which had taken place in India was in 2020. So from that perspective, why hasn't any concrete step been taken place from an industry body standpoint?
So let me tell you that IDMA has 22 technical committees with us on the board. And in any endeavor, any step that is required related to the trade and industry, we are always a part of the efforts with the government. When this last happened, I think it happened in '84. That was one major incident that had happened, and IDMA was a part of those discussions. Just to appraise you that after that incident, the nation has learned, and the current requirements or the standards for the propylene glycol and glycerin in India, in the Indian pharmacopoeia, are at par with any international pharmacopoeia. They are equivalent to the limit for the diethylene glycol and the monoethylene glycol. As we stand today, has been revised long back. They stand at 0.1%, which is in line with the US pharmacopoeia and the British pharmacopoeia. So we cannot say that we did not learn from the past. At the same time, we must also understand that there was a similar incidents that had happened in Nigeria sometimes back in 2010. And these products were found, these were anti-malarial products found to be substandard, very grossly substandard. They were claimed to have been manufactured by one Indian company. And after, there was again a hue cry at that point in time. But after investigation, it so turned out that those products which were labeled as made in India had actually originated from one of our neighbors. So I think we should keep our fingers crossed, let the investigation get over, let us get the facts out, and then we should jump to the conclusion.
Okay, well, the last previous incident that took place was in 2020, sir. But Mr. Jayaseelan, you know, I want to get your thoughts on board, and I want you to put on your hat of a promoter, because you do have a pharmaceutical company that does export drugs to Africa. You have been doing so for the past 30 odd years. What do you think, in your experience, actually went wrong in this particular case?
Good evening to all. I am having a hat of Indian Pharmaceutical Association, and you also asked my personal input. Both way, I am a professional and I am a promoter. I am a technical person as well as promoter of pharma. First, we should accept this. For any company, any medicines cannot kill this kind of 68 or 66 children. Like my colleague said here, Viranchi Bhai said, that the investigation is in process, and you are quoting about WHO. WHO also said it is because of E. coli infection. So I'm not sure what has happened, right, in this incident till, like what he said, finally we are getting the conclusion from the expert body. Coming back as a promoter, we are enjoying very good share in Africa, and I want to tell you, we are not selling medicine, but saving lives of trillions of people in African countries. Without Indian medicine, it's not our words. We are
Sure.
not telling from India side.
But sir, I just wanted to ask you that in this particular case, since you do export drugs to Africa, what do you think could have gone wrong based on the fact that, or based on the assumption that it is the case of DEG poisoning of 4 cough and cold syrup drugs which are manufactured by Maiden Pharma and were exported to Gambia? Let's take that hypothetical situation and give us your perspective on it. Yes.
Yeah, if you want me to hypothetically answer, he has already told, the solvent quality has been already well defined by Indian Pharmacopoeia. Something, if there is a gap, it should be the problem of solvent, not with the active pharmaceutical ingredient or the process. As it is hypothecated, the solvent, some kind of impurity level, which would be more than the normal accepted level. If the impurity level is more, then that would have caused this damage. That is what hypothesis WHO is also telling in one front. So technically, the solvent supplied by, I don't know, it may not be directly in this case from the company. I perceive that way. It might be through some traders. We need to check. This expert committee will come with more details once they find the problem is, if impurity level is more with this solvent. They'll go back who has supplied it, who has manufactured it. Might be in another, say, couple of weeks, we'll have real data in hand. If you want me to hypothecate, then the problem would be in the solvent.
Okay, so generally what happens, and probably with your company as well, is that the API or the solvents have to get tested before the final drug is manufactured? That's the protocol?
Any material for that matter, even water coming in, any material as per good manufacturing practice, any material coming into the factory has to be tested. It would be placed in quarantine. After testing only, whether it will be approved or rejected, then only the material goes into the store and then to production. So that is the basic thing followed by any pharma industry.
Okay. Dr. Lamba, you know, you've looked at a lot of plants in your history of the pharmaceutical space, and you have worked with the likes of Ranbaxy as well in the past. Give us your sense in terms of the violations that this particular plant had. For example, the plant being under renovation, and hence that reduces the chance of seeing the plant in a steady state, lack of a logbook, etc. What does that point to, according to you?
Hi, thanks. So I think this looks to be, as Dr. Viranchi Shah said, that of course there is no doubt that we have to wait for investigation to get over, but I think there are very clear indicators. Especially a show cause notice has been given by the government to Maiden Pharma. If you look at their violations of current good manufacturing practices in this, Now, these issues are different. I'm not saying that this happened because of this, but one thing is very clear. There are GMP violations at Maiden Pharma right from the material. The material has not been tested, it seems, as per the Indian Pharmacopoeia. There are violations with regard to process validation. That means the process which was followed for this has not been tried and tested and validated for this product. The third area is that there are violations as far as availability of records, including logbooks, including raw materials, their batch numbers. There are also variations on the batch numbering, which is followed on the records. That's the reason a show cause notice has been given to the company. Now, since the organization is on a shutdown, I think it's very important to really look at that there are GMP policies and guidances and the laws is in place, but the responsibility lies on the manufacturer to make sure these GMP norms are adhered to, are followed completely, because we are looking at the lives of the people. These are kids below 2 years of age who have suffered. I think my heart goes all out to, for the patients, parents, see what's going on in their mind. It's our responsibility, and the onus lies on us as all Indians, whether we are regulators, whether we are industry, to look at that the patient is a patient everywhere, whether it is India or different parts of the world. And we must ensure that the good manufacturing practices which have been listed in our Schedule M, they are adhered to in all aspects.
But Mr. Lamba, according to you, what do you think went wrong in the supply chain? Was it actually the API which was contaminated, the solvent that was contaminated, or do you think that it was the state of the plant and the manufacturing process which was undertaken by Maiden Pharma? Some regulatory experts have pointed out that this is a clear case of data integrity as well. In that case, do you think that there was a problem with the process in the plant, or do you think that it was a problem with the solvent?
Primarily, this looks to be an issue of the solvent. Now, of course, the investigation is going on based on my experience, and also this kind of contamination which has happened in the past. It seems to be an issue of a solvent. Now, there are various regulations on the processes, but because of these processes, a patient, especially a kid, won't die. It looks to be a direct cause of a material which has been ingested, including contamination of diethylene glycol and propylene glycol, because this has happened in the past. Even 4 cases of the samples have been concluded that it contained diethylene glycol, and the recent cases of all diethylene glycol contamination resulted into the nephrotoxicity for the patients. So this clearly points out to a solvent contamination. Probably an industrial grade solvent has been used in a pharmaceutical grade product. Probably this is one area which is a potential cause.
If I can take this conversation forward with Dr. Shah. Dr. Shah, as far as Maharashtra is concerned, they've started testing samples from various cough syrups available in the market, openly available for commercial deployment. The question I want to ask you is, there seems to be a legitimate concern that this is not an isolated incident. What we're hearing, the criticism from some quarters is that Maiden Pharma could perhaps be a scapegoat, whereas the broader industry, again, does not come to terms with the bigger question of perhaps increasing the thresholds as far as quality control compliance is concerned. Your position on that?
So I think, the current the market size or the industry size today is 50 billion. And as an industry, most of the experts feel that this industry is likely to scale up to almost 500 billion by next 25 years. And if India has to go from number 3 volume in the world to number 1 volume in the world in the next 25 years, it is very, very certain that we will have to definitely look into, escalating our quality systems, escalating our innovation, escalating the level of the status of industry into value-added products. And quality is given, it is necessary to be built. But as far as the current situation is concerned, my point is, we should not generalize it, because as a nation, currently we are the suppliers of essential medicines to almost 200 countries. More than half of our exports go to very mature markets. We have close to 1,800 WHO GMP certified units. We have close to 700 units which have been approved by stringent regulatory authorities like US FDA, EU, and the rest. So there is no doubt about the capability of the industry, and I'm not saying that what has happened is not an industry's problem. It's definitely everybody's problem. And once the investigation comes out, IDMA and all the industry members would be more than interested to understand what went wrong and how we could rectify it.
Sure. Mr. Jayaseelan, if I may take up another issue with you, one of the concerns that has been red flagged by, in fact, the authors of the book Truth Pill, Mr. Prashant Reddy, is that there seems to be a regulatory overlap. We have the DCGI, we have the CDSCO at the center, and then there are state regulators which also serve as licensing authorities. Is there a need for greater centralization? Is this perhaps coming in the way for better execution of some of these standards, quality control measures that we speak of?
Actually, currently speaking, in domestic market, there is a very clear regulatory pattern is right now there. Central drug regulators are framing the policy and state regulators are sticking to that and they are giving license. And coming to the exports, there is a separate license needed for exports based on each, because the importing country will have certain regulations. We need to obey to that. In this particular incident also, the imported country will have various regulations which will some countries will have testing procedure also before the product is being exported from India. So what I'm trying to tell is Indian pharmacopoeia or Indian regulation is
okay. I think
very
Mr. Jayaseelan's internet connection is a little it's a bit slow there. But Dr. Shah, I just wanted to come to you. We do understand the prowess that Indian the Indian pharma industry enjoys when it comes to exports. One, do you think that this reputation is now probably a bit dented and at stake at this point with this incident? And two, the problem is from an industry body standpoint, have you made the case that you would like to have more stringent regulations when it comes to India in order to avoid such cases, to prevent any such incident from happening so that it doesn't impact your overall business as a whole when it comes to even exports?
Madam, there are two parts of your question. Number one is whether it has any dent on India or not. I think in this modern world where the news will fly through your WhatsApp and through your phones, I think it is definitely a very important dent, very serious dent to the nation's name and capabilities. And we all should stand up to, to make sure that we get ourselves cleared out from this. But I am sure that, again, as I repeat, that we'll have to wait till the investigation gets over, because we don't know as yet what has really happened and what is the cause of death. The second part of it is how do we go forward from here? And as I said, we are global number 3 in terms of the volumes that we handle right now. And if we have to go to number 2 or number 1, the dream that we all aspire by 2047, definitely we will have to, continuously work on quality and affordability of the drugs. As IDMA, we have been working with all the stakeholders, including the scientists, the regulators, the supply chain and the distribution people, the various international agencies and regulators, the healthcare providers. And we have been doing this for the last 60 years to ensure that the drugs that are manufactured in India, and especially by our members, are of good quality and they are acceptable. We have, as a nation, transferred from a country that was totally dependent on imports to the global pharmacy. A lot of good things have been done, but very rightly, as you said, we have to understand what went wrong in this, and we will definitely work with the government to rectify it.
Okay, Dr. Shah, Dr. Lamba, I just want to end this conversation by asking you that in particular, do you think that there needs to be more checks and balances when it comes to APIs and solvents? Because there is a case of high input prices that the entire industry is dealing with as well. So hence, there could be a compromise in quality going forward. I just want to cite an example of propylene glycol prices, which are currently at at around 150 rupees. They are off the peak of 600 rupees, but this compares to around 60 odd rupees earlier. So do you think that there is a case of coming down harder when it comes to regulations and checks and balances on API companies?
Yes, you're right. Actually, if you've seen in the past, most of the organizations, they have given more focus on the finished product analysis and the API analysis. Worldwide, there have been regulations, including India, that all the raw materials must be analyzed as per the existing standards of the pharmacopoeia or other international standards if it's not available in that country, to make sure that the input materials are of standard quality. In some cases, especially when there is a price control, for example, in India, I would say in a domestic market, even if the prices of the raw materials and the excipients and the solvents are going up, it's our onus and responsibility by the government to make sure that there is some margin for the manufacturer. Because if it's not there, such kind of lapses, such kind of bypasses will happen where people, they do not test the solvents or the other excipients to make sure they're of a standard quality. There has been instances in the past, and even in the recent past also, we have observed that some of the materials were found to be contaminated, whether it was procured from China or from other parts of the world. There have been a number of contamination issues. It is very important for us that we lay down very tough standards and regulations. In this case particularly, there is a standard available in the Indian Pharmacopoeia to check for diethylene glycol contamination in propylene glycol. But I think we have to see whether how uniformly this practice is followed by the industry. Most of the industry professionals, including entrepreneurs, are following it as per the GMP requirements, but we don't know. I think the investigation in principle will tell us whether it was done or not, but initial data by the government in Haryana tells us that there are many lapses on the part of manufacturer.
Well, I'd like to thank all of our panelists for joining us and sharing their thoughts and perspectives, as well as Ekta Batra, my colleague, for throwing more light on what's at hand. But that's all the time that we have for. It's a wrap on this special broadcast. Thanks so much for watching. But stay tuned to CNBC TV 18. News and updates will continue on the other side.